Hi, this is Kemal Carr, President of Madison Advisors. I'd like to thank the Solimar team for inviting us here to the virtual conference. We're going to present two topics in our session today. One is I'm going to give a state of the market here in 2020, certainly a strange year for everybody. And Keith, the Vice President of Research, will be covering the post-composition market study preview that we're working on as a group. So with that, I want to go ahead and get started on the state of the market. I'll ask Keith to drive the slides for me. So our agenda for this session is, like I said, I'll be covering the state of the market, covering the topics on the left, and then I'm going to hand it over to Keith, who's the lead on the post-composition market study. He'll cover some of the topics he's found in through his research. So a little bit about Madison Advisors for those who are unfamiliar with us. We do a number of things. Probably key to what we do is objective analysis of the marketplace. Again, when I say marketplace, it's mostly the CCM environment, so things that touch the customer communication from organizations. And we do client-specific guidance, so we get asked to come in and help firms with specific topics and issues and help them resolve those. And we do a lot of in-depth market knowledge in the customer communication space, and that's exactly what Keith will be talking to next. So in a post-COVID-19 shutdown year, this year has been obviously strange for everybody. We've seen varied responses from our enterprise clients. So our three client segments are enterprise, so mostly financial services, insurance, and banking. And then we work with the technology providers such as Solimar. And then we also work with the large print service providers that provide those services on behalf of the enterprise. So we've seen a number of our enterprise customers where we engage in projects early on in this year that have closed down their campuses. Some of them have closed them through the end of this year. And we've heard campuses close as far into June of 2021. So the question there is, how are people working from home and how will that continue as they go forward? And so in this new environment, coming on site and working projects with those teams is extremely difficult. So we do a lot of Zoom calls as we're doing today. We're also seeing a number of disaster recovery reevaluations underway. So when COVID shutdown took place in March, many firms declared a disaster and worked with their provider. In some cases, that provider was unable to fulfill their obligation. And so they're looking at, which is what we saw in the cold disaster recovery market. The folks that had warm DR solutions, I think, fared better. So everybody who had DR declared is looking at those declarations and how they fared and making an assessment on whether they need an updated plan or if the plan they had was actually sufficient. One of our clients, believe it or not, actually had their disaster recovery test in January, and they randomly pick what disaster they'll be testing for. And this year they picked pandemic, so it was very timely. And then we're also seeing is that a number of modification and operation protocols for those print service providers in support of the enterprise clients. So having this, shifting their staff and then also looking at different exit and entrance protocols into the building and make sure they have separation of staff to keep everybody safe. We have, as part of the, I think, RFPs for disaster recovery and the evaluation of doing this work internally and what the risks are in this new world, we've seen a number of RFPs for enterprise print mail operations. So we're actively working 3 ourselves, and we know of probably 3 others in the marketplace that people are looking at. Is an enterprise customer looking at, do I want to be in this business of printing and mailing internally, managing all those risks that come with keeping staff separate and safe. And so as part of that, we're also doing our best, completing a number of best practice assessments. For this year, we had started, again, back in the early part of the year, of the top 10 print service providers in the market, we were doing a kind of a complete reassessment of that entire marketplace. So we'll have good, complete information on where they are relative to the rest of the market. So we're actually back to work. We're on airplanes. We're flying around. We're fully functional in the new post-COVID air travel shutdown mode. So as I mentioned, the migration from in-house to out-house print service providers. So this top tier was what we would consider national providers based on number of production sites, monthly page volumes, and then our best practices scores. You can see in the second to the left column, providers there are the folks that we're finishing up our best practices evaluation of. So we'll have good information on FIS, Pfizer, Broadridge, CSG. There's a couple others we've finished end of last year. So again, we'll have complete and accurate best practices assessment and comparative information on those providers. if you look at the column to the far right, there's still a number of internal sites that would match that same criteria as the national print service providers. Those are the big providers, mainly again some big insurance firms, big banks, and those folks are either looking at RFP or discussing RFPs with us at this point. So the question is, at the bottom there is who in the market can sustain, right? If you have a sufficient volume internally and maybe a multiple of production print sites, you still might not want to continue to do this work in-house, even though it may be cost effective. So what we look at on this chart is we look at this is a print service provider, our BPA score, so how we evaluate them kind of offset by their volume on the bottom axis. And what we see is the score on the left is 1 to 100 is how we score them in their aggregate score. So you want to be in the top left-hand corner from a score perspective. And then the volumes again along the bottom. So if you're a high provider or a large national production provider, you'd be further to the right. What most people are looking at are providers in that circle. So when we talk to enterprise clients, they typically want to look and say, okay, who scored high in the best practices assessment? And then where in the volume range would we fit as an internal operation? And then those are the folks typically in that circle that we're working with.
Well, thank you, Kemal. Hello, everybody. My name is Keith Woedy. I'm the Vice President of Research for Madison Advisors. I've been tasked to conduct a market study specific to PostComposition. And as Kemal mentioned earlier, Madison Advisors participates in a number of requests for information, requests for proposals, both in the commercial space and the print service provider space. So we get to see a lot of input from clients, we get to understand and view a lot of the workflows specific to customer communication management. The market study that we're going to release, and it's slated to be released mid to late October, is designed to provide customers like yourself with information that addresses what we believe are some mission critical applications that occur where PostComposition resides, which typically is in the output management space. So the presentation today is going to cover really a review of the past PostComposition at its inception, where we see PostComposition today, and then what we think the driving forces behind decisions to implement PostComposition will reside going forward. For a lot of you, you probably have a number of composition tools, and a lot of people will say, I hear this all the time, well, why do I need PostComposition? I already have a composition tool. Well, in our journey and our understanding of client environments, we see multiple composition tools. It's not uncommon for us to see multiple composition tools within an organization. And sometimes, and I think the highest number that we've seen so far is about 7 different composition tools. Now, some of these tools are legacy, are developed in a legacy format. So it's very difficult for change management to occur in going back upstream to the composition platform when a lot of the developers and coders are either retired or they're no longer with the organization. PostComposition allows you to satisfy some of those requirements and move at a greater level of speed to address both client and internal production issues. In the past, we've seen things being addressed like document re-engineering and enhancement. When I talk about enhancement, that includes things like colorization, overlays, content management, and content re-engineering. The ability for you to enable or eliminate pre-printed shells and pre-printed stocks without going upstream and changing, and recoding applications, so that you can enable a true white paper factory down on the production floor. Things like replacing barcodes and sequence numbers, cleansing addresses, the ability to archive, export, and import data, and then some of the things that have developed even more so going forward, things like commingling and concatenation, the ability to combine small production jobs and move them to a bigger production run, so that you can leverage the efficiencies of the products that you have on your production floor. As we move forward, people have moved away, or at least there's been a move toward the inkjet platform. Cut sheet laser is while historically had been kind of the level set for the industry, inkjet now has become the desired state, and that presents a number of problems. So the inkjet platform in and of itself tends not to like some of the things that I just talked about. So short run work to inkjet is really does not optimize the investment in that platform for organizations. So the ability to concatenate jobs, and even more specifically to optimize files and cache resources so that inkjet operates at rated speed on the floor are becoming very critical to organizations. In addition to that, the postal costs are what the postal costs are, but we're hearing a lot of customers talk to us about the ability to commingle and leverage 5-digit zip code discounts, MRDF codes and things of that nature on the production floor. So that represents an opportunity to realize significant savings. And in a lot of cases, you're going to have to change some of the calls that have been designed upstream to be able to leverage these savings and maximize your mail production. Historically, clients have developed applications upstream. So there's the ability to move those applications and address some of the change management issues downstream are done through templates and variable data. So the ability to rapidly onboard and add value to these applications, which include data optimization, data indexing, and a lot of the things that we talked about earlier with respect to conversion to support PDF print workflows are addressed with the PostComposition tools that we're reviewing in the study. Householding and the ability to, we'll move into the customer experience, but householding and ability to combine your clients' accounts together and subsequently improve their experience with your organization are one of the key indicators for organizations in making a better client experience down the road. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. But and then when we speak to senior leaders, the requirement for mobile visibility and dashboarding, the ability to see at the piece level down on the production floor, and the things that are going on, the changes that are being made, addressing approvals and things of that nature. And more so now that people are working remote, your ability to see into the organization, either through a dashboard or through mobile visibility, become critical to ensuring that the product that is going off the floor is accurate and timely. So PostComposition, we think that it's changed a little bit in that it is expanding its role in addressing mission critical applications in organizations, and that includes things that typically have been associated with the customer experience. As I mentioned earlier, customers are becoming more and more demanding of how they're receiving information and viewing information, and their experience with the organization, their ability to maintain, or a client's ability to maintain retention levels of a customer are directly correlate with their customer experience. This combined with some of the increased compliance factors and regulatory restrictions that all our customers are having to address demonstrate a real significant reason for you to consider PostComposition tools so that you can stay up to speed with all of these components and that you can keep your organization current. The ability to implement regulatory requirements as an ever-changing as industry or as regulations change. We've seen, as a brief example, some of the regulatory requirements and the security requirements have come down recently, and we've seen some litigation as a result of that. So these are real issues that impact the bottom line of organizations, and your ability to be able to respond and respond quickly and accurately can be addressed through post-composition solutions and in a timely manner. The ability to rapidly migrate to digital delivery and enable digital alternatives, which include things like print suppression. Everyone talks about the paperless office. I think we all know now that that is not going to happen anytime soon, but customers are migrating to email delivery. They are looking at digital presentment, the ability to optimize images for multi-channel delivery and enable digital alternatives, all drive and improve the customer experience if you have the ability to stay current with the times. And post-composition allows you to do those type things. One of the, we'll talk about a little bit of this in the Solimar value-added portion of the presentation, but augmented reality and the ability to personalize data as digital information becomes more accurate and more specific to individuals, allow you to, again, address your clients on an individual basis and provide them a much better customer experience. So I'd like to thank Matt and Marianne and Jonathan for their involvement in the study. They did a lot of hard work and provided a lot of information to Madison Advisors. As I've assessed their representation in the industry, we believe Solimar provides some unique and outstanding opportunities for both their customers and new customers to consider their offerings. In the study, we looked at the products Rubica and Ready PDF, and we also took a brief look at the SolaTrack offering. And I would argue also that their Print Director product also is part and parcel to the post-composition or enabling post-composition, and the Print Director tool allows for robust print stream conversion. And everything that I looked at in the Solimar offering, if there's a print stream out there, they check the box. So you can rest assured, even if you have a complex environment that may support multiple print streams, I think you have a good partner in Solimar to be able to convert any of those or emulate those if that's the requirement.
Hey Keith, one question. I know you've heard also from some of our customers or clients that are asking for information on this technology is testing, right? Testing of the composition tools as you go and make changes. Oftentimes the post-composition systems are easier to implement, changes to barcodes or changes into orientation rather than going back to the core composition systems, and the testing that is, that's saved is part of that process.
That's absolutely correct. And I think, at its core, the ability to avoid going back to the original composition tool or going upstream and utilizing expensive and time-consuming re-engineering processes and personnel are part and parcel or mission critical to organization, and post-composition enables all of that. So that's a great point, Kemal, and absolutely a driving factor to the questions that we're hearing from our client base. So Solimar also, we talked a little bit about robust print stream conversion, and they also include a very extensive understanding and delivery mechanism that supports extensive bidirectional support for both host computers and print devices. I think we can call Solimar out as a leader on the bidirectional support of print devices, and pesky little things like tray calls and finishing options. All of those things can be addressed within the Rubica offering. We talked about, so Solimar has landed on the PDF format as their tool or their baseline for supporting changes downstream. Their ability to implement the PDF format improves workflows and leverages legacy technologies, and really provides a forward-looking opportunity and benefits for their users and potential clients. Their offerings are modular, flexible, and to a large extent user configurable. So none of this is coding. This is all you don't need an engineer to do this. It also supports both a tactical and strategic implementation. So, for example, if you've already made a decision to work with someone on a composition tool, Solimar, we like to say, plays well with others. So you can, and it's modular. So you can purchase, for example, Rubica to address post-composition tools. If you need a tool to help you with your PDF optimization, you can put Ready PDF in the mix as well, and include the SolaTrack for digital viewing and dashboarding. So, or mobile viewing, excuse me, and dashboarding. So very modular, very flexible, and user configurable. Now, one of the things that really stood out to me with respect to Solimar was their engagement of the user to not just from a support perspective, but from a product development perspective. So all of the user, and I'm sure a lot of you have participated in, and this is a great example of a user conference, but user workshops and best practices that they gather from their clients to help develop the tool and keep a fresh version of the tool front and center to the industry. If you are participating in the maintenance program for Solimar, all of these revisions and upgrades are free to use, so you never have to worry about whether you have the most current version. They take care of you and support you, and I think the interaction between client and provider with respect to Solimar is outstanding, and they represent a leadership position there. So we've had a great opportunity to spend a good bit of time with the Solimar team, and I'd like to thank them for all of their time. I know that we delivered a fairly extensive questionnaire to them, and it took them, I'm sure, a good bit of time to get that back to us. But I would just close in saying that the study will be out, as I mentioned earlier, mid to late October. That we will be diving deeper into all of these components from a technical perspective and a client perspective, and hopefully you'll have a chance and opportunity to take a look at the study, and I hope it helps. I hope it helps the organization that you're working with, and can allow you to make a good decision going forward on as it pertains to post-composition. So I'd like to thank everybody for their time, and I appreciate your attention today. Thank you very much.